សមាគមធនធានមនុស្សកម្ពុជា HRAC ជាឃ្លាំងវិជ្ជាផ្ដល់ចំណេះដឹងជូនមិត្តគ្រប់គ្នា
on the flexi personalized total reward strategy. So without further delay, allow me to invite Mr. Cheong Seng, the Executive Director on the topic HR strategies, talent development, and key performance indicators. Please give him a warm welcome.
I know all of you are very tired, so may I introduce you to another language because we are now ASEAN people. I want to teach you how to greet in my country's language. I would like to practice. The first phrase is Selamat pagi. Very good. It means good morning. Okay, the next one, since you are so good, Selamat pagi tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Okay, please say it after me. 1, 2, go. Very good. Selamat pagi tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Give each other a clap. Yes. It means good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat datang. Welcome. Very good. You can now come to Malaysia. Okay. So, Mr. MC, that is not part of my speech. Let me tell you a story first, because it has to do with human resource, looking into the future. How many of you have heard of Sherlock Holmes? Please put up your hands. Not bad, but not good enough. But never mind. Sherlock Holmes was an investigator of murder cases. He's like a detective. All right? Okay, this is how the story goes. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, his best friend, medical doctor like Dr. Tang, dentist, are taking a trip across a desert in a hot air balloon. Do you know what's a hot air balloon? Yes, it's hot air, the balloon flies and you're in the basket. There are not many landmarks, and then as they flew, they got lost. So they see a man down there, and Mr. Holmes shouted to that man down there, "Sir, could you please tell us where are we?" The man looks up, thought for a moment, and then answers, "Gentlemen, you are in a hot air balloon." At that moment, a strong wind came, picks up the balloon and carries it far away. Holmes turned to Dr. Watson, his friend. "My friend, do you know who that man is?" Dr. Watson says, "Of course, I do not know." Mr. Holmes said, "He is an HR consultant." Holmes, "That's incredible. But how do you know?" "He was way up there and this man was way down here." "Well, it's very simple, Watson. This is how HR consultants work. First of all, they think before they give an answer. Secondly, his answer was absolutely correct. Thirdly, the answer he gave us was of no practical use whatsoever. Sorry, HR consultants, I'm one of you. It's a joke on ourselves. Okay, now you can start timing me. Yes. First of all, my talk is going to be so boring, so when you fall asleep, I'll forgive you. There are only 3 parts. What is happening in ASEAN? HR in ASEAN, looking forward into the future. Secondly, how do you deal with what Mr. Oakvilla says, retaining talent? I will talk about one aspect of talent management called the 360 degrees assessment. And lastly, how do you become an HR business partner? Because we want the CEO to love you so much. Because HR heads usually suffer a lot. Nobody listens to them enough. So I teach you a secret on how to become valuable to your CEO. Starting with HR in ASEAN. Where do I point? How can you? Okay. Back. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, in the beginning in 1967, only 5 countries formed ASEAN. They call it Southeast Asian Nations, C. Then Brunei joined in 1984, Vietnam in 1995, Myanmar and Laos in 98. Cambodia was the last to join in 1999. Very good. Now Cambodia is part of ASEAN. However, what is important is here. Goods, services, investment, and skilled labor are going to flow amongst the nations. Please be prepared. You will find Malaysians coming here, Singaporeans, even British. You know what I mean? Or Europeans. Because Cambodia will become a land of opportunities. And then you'll find Cambodians going to Malaysia too. You know, Mr. Navut told me there are Cambodians working in our telecommunications company. So we are moving to and fro. It's called borderlessness. And then this is very important. We are now part of the AEC, the ASEAN Economic Community, as of December 31st, 2015. Very new. So come January is now your opportunity to start seeing new technology, new things happening. And I want to show you what is happening in the different countries of ASEAN. Sorry. Can you help me? Next. You will see a human capital index of 2015, the latest information of what is happening. You'll find that of 124 countries or economies, Singapore is the top in ASEAN. They score 78.15 out of 100 points. The average points is 67 points. All right? Just remember, that's Mr. Average. Philippines is next. Not bad, Malaysia. Richard, despite what happens in our country, the people are very resilient. Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. Now, 67 is the average. Here is a cutoff point. Vietnam is 1 point above 67. Interesting, isn't it? They are developing very fast, the Vietnamese. You know, Indonesia. Cambodia, don't worry. When you have 58.55, it can only mean one of two things. You are going to be very determined to catch up. In fact, yesterday, Mr. Navut says, we are open to learning. And I'm very admirable of Cambodian determination. Keep it up. Okay? So this is the state of things. So I don't want to go any further. Now, the Human Development Index means a measurement of how you train your people. We call it learning and development. Training is an old-fashioned word. We now use a high-class word called learning and development or human capital development. All right? So what do you see? Singapore, obviously. Any Singaporeans here? I'll tell you a secret. They're very scared to lose, so they always run faster. Malaysians, we are not scared of anything, but we are scared of somebody chasing behind us. So we are second. Brunei, surprisingly, Thailand, Indonesia. These are the original Southeast Asian countries. So I believe the new countries like Cambodia, Vietnam are going to catch up very, very fast. And this is 2013 index, quite up to date. Okay, So this is just to show you some statistics. Right. Which one is most beautiful? The creator or the creature? The creature. Okay. This is Professor Nadia Holstrom, the professor of robotic technology in NTU, Nanyang Technology University. She created a younger version of her. They look alike. This is matured. I never say old, matured. This is youthful. So she made a robot that looks a little bit like her in her younger days. And her name is called Nadine. So this is Professor Nadia. This is Miss Nadine. Now, robots can now look very beautiful. It has got plastic flesh, nice hair, and when you scold her, she can get very angry. So she can respond emotionally. You talk about emotional intelligence. Now there is what we call artificial intelligence. That means your brains transferred through programming language into here. So she can respond to you and talk in the language that she's been programmed. Now, robots are going to get more beautiful by the year or more handsome, depending on male or female now. We can create male or female robots. You may not need domestic mates in time to come. They can look after the elderly. They can look after children. They can do housework for you. Isn't that beautiful? No need work-life balance, So work-life balance can be out of date by technology. I'm talking about disruptors of technology. This is in Singapore already. So can you imagine? Technology is driving HR. This is going to be the new human resource. Where next time your bosses can employ robots at the factories. So watch out for this. Mr. Oakvilla, are you tempted? No need to talk about cash or non-cash. Just one piece called capital. Buy the robot and it's yours. My only worry is that we are going to make it better and better. You might fall in love with a female robot. So watch out for all this emotional, not only intelligence, emotional technology coming into place. I'm giving you new terms. Watch out for new things that are happening. Artificial intelligence. Moving on. These are the kind of companies which are now growing in ASEAN. We call it the preferred employers or the employers of good brand, employers of choice. They are not perfect, but these are emerging companies. You see, Singtel Singapore, Development Bank of Singapore, thank goodness, Malaysia has something called Maybank. Telkom Indonesia, Public Bank is here. Am I right? BCA, Thai. This is a telecommunications company, Mandiri, SCB. Sime Darby is Malaysian, Axiata is Malaysian, Tenaga Nasional is Malaysian, OCBC Singapore, UOB Singapore, Astra, I believe, is Indonesia. You'll find all these companies coming. Have you seen Lion Corporation in Phnom Penh? That's Malaysian already. So eventually, the larger companies are large by market capitalization or revenue. And a lot of employees will be attracted to these emerging giants. So Cambodia, quickly build up your companies also to attract. This is the shape of things to come. Okay, sorry. Now, IBM has a supercomputer. Have you heard of IBM Watson? Mr. Watson, not the Sherlock Holmes one, but it was named after Mr. Watson, the founder of IBM. Now, this one is what they call cognitive technological learning machine. Something like Nadine, artificial intelligence, but it's a supercomputer. What happens in Malaysia? This is what we are doing. This gentleman has got a very interesting job title. He's called the Chief Customer Experience and Analytics Operating Officer. Have you ever heard of such a job? Doesn't exist, right? But in Malaysia, it is called that. What happens is He's announcing, as of January 2016, Hong Leong Credit is investing in IBM Watson. That means it's using cloud technology. You all know what is cloud technology? Like clouds are. Everything is stored elsewhere in a different server, remote from where you are. Mr. Watson, the supercomputer, is going to be used in Hong Leong Bank for credit cards, meaning it will be there 24/7. No more shift work already. So even more interesting, Mr. Oak, Villa, because customer can call anytime and this can answer with an artificial voice, and it can give you an answer within 3 seconds, because in every 1 second, it will absorb 500 gigabits of information, which means 1 million books per second. So 3 seconds is 3 million worth of books will be absorbed. So Christopher Lee, you talk about technological thing. Here it is. It has arrived. So you can even look at the credit worthiness of the card holder, the payment terms, the payment records. So watch out. You must upgrade your skill as fast as possible before the computers begin to take over. That is my advice to you. Technology has now moved on. Okay, so one tool that I would like to recommend is in talent development, you're always talking about talents, right? Talent is usually a function of competence, and competence is a function of performance, right? So, like Singapore, go up the value chain if you want to develop talents. Don't do the bread and butter kind of work. Like in HR, in Malaysia in the old days, HR was called administration department parked under finance. Is it similar in Cambodia? That is old-fashioned. Then after that, it moved out to become personnel department. You know what they do in personnel department? Recruitment only. Very classical. Do you all still do that? The first thing HR has seen is recruitment. And then after that, payroll. Human resource. Human resource is about succession planning, learning, training, industrial relations, etc., etc. But now, we further have improved HR, we call it human capital, because it's part of the capital assets of a company. But even better still now, there's a very sexy term for HR. If you all are sexy enough, it is called business partners. That means you're moving from HR into a business model. That's where you should aim for if you want to know your strategic direction going forward. The only way is to assess through a 360 degrees feedback, where it's a systematic process of collecting data, feedback from observers like your boss, the people reporting to you, your peers or team members and customers on job-relevant competencies in order to effectively perform. That is the definition of 360. Many of you are using 360, so this is a refresher course for you. And for those who do not know, this is more objective than what you call, have you heard of performance appraisal? In performance appraisal, the boss only appraised the employee. Am I right? It's called a one-way method. 360 is a four-way method, and it's more objective, and you can even do it online. So the boss normally, this is example, the self will assess himself. Usually when you assess yourself, it can only be good. Very rarely you'll be bad. Otherwise, you're not in love with yourself. Okay. Second is the boss above you. Third is at least 4 staff below you. And then those that are of the same level with you in the organization. This is a fairer assessment. One whole round of assessment. It is not easy to do, quite tedious, but very rewarding. what I want to say is, in this kind of assessment of competencies going forward, largely it's for developmental purposes. 70% under the Hewitt Associates research. Only 20% used for performance management, because worse still, 5% for pay and 5% for others. This is a no-no. Never use a developmental tool to decide whether how much increment or bonus you should give, because it seems as a punishment. You understand? You must take the tool as a developmental process, not as a punishment. But many clients have come to me and say, but how? In our performance appraisal form, we have what they call the behavioral competencies. Am I right? Can we replace that? I say, well, technically you're not supposed to, but you can use it as bonus points for developmental purposes. Do you understand? Not to cut increments or not to cut bonuses. Okay? Because it's developmental. How do you combine performance and competencies? That will be another secret story. I will share if there's time. You see, many of us have these 4 quadrants. Number 1 is, many people, we do not know our own weaknesses, but other people know. Am I right? That's called the blind spot. Then, there are areas that you think you are weak and people think you are weak. So you need to develop. That's a common spot. Then there's also hidden strength. You never knew you had such talent, but other people can see it. You see the interesting thing? It's a blind spot in the reverse order. And these are obvious strengths. People know you are strong in this, and you yourself know you are strong in it. Is that clear? So this is the 4 quadrants of what the 360 is aiming at. So you can use it for succession planning. You can use it for leadership development. Many of you talk about being managers, leaders, because why do employees leave the workplace? Number 1, it's not only on total cash, That's called the hygienic factor. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you understand, total cash, with due apologies to Com and Ben, focuses on physiological and security. But if you want higher level, like self-actualization in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then the leadership development, which is to be good managers, to be good CEOs, create a culture where people want to stay, that they love working for you and with you. That's what we call talent retention. I know there's talent acquisition which is out of date. Now they call it talent attraction. That's the inward move. But you got to keep them. I call it talent retention. Retention is as important as attraction. Of course, there are certain talents that we want them out. We call it talent exit. We have nice terms now. Talent exit is in the field of industrial relations, dealing with termination and dismissal. You understand? I've simplified the whole process for you because we have gone through all of these stages many times. And it will also lead to better performance delivery. So far clear? So that's the way to move. So what do the bosses normally look for? The bosses always look at what is your bottom line. No, it's not a bad word. What is not your bottom, but what is your bottom line? Meaning, how well do you support me? The boss is always looking for that. Are you of value to me? That's why I pay you this salary. It is a measure of your worth to the company. The people below you look at emotional intelligence or derailment factors. In simple terms, it means, how well do you look after me? You always look up to your boss to protect you, isn't it? To watch over you. In the event of politics between departments, you hide under your boss. Your boss is supposed to be your protector. But some bosses know, they throw you to the lions. So that's leadership for you. Leadership from behind. Okay. The next one is your peers. Your peers always say, how good are you compared to me? It's as simple as that. What is your potential? So that's why you have to do 3 plus yourself, 4 levels of assessment. And that Ken Nowak, the inventor of this. Okay. I think I can change that. So, a 360 is very simply this. How many of you understand accounting? It's like a balance sheet. It's called Balance Sheet of ABC Companies as at 31st December 2015. That means it's a status of a person, you say a stock check of your human capital. Then, knowing and being aware is one thing. How to cause change? Remember change management, as Christopher Lee has said? Change must be measured. It cannot be left to chance. So what you do is, we have what you call, one way that we encourage called talent accelerator, which means you accelerate the talent in change in 2 or 3 competencies in a year. A person cannot cope with more than that because change is difficult. Change is like trying to change habits, if you understand what I mean. So there's a talent accelerator that will measure your change in 1 year. Then you take another 360 degrees at 31st December 2016, another balance sheet, and see the changes, the difference. That is what most employers are looking for. But this is a bit like the Holy Grail. Where do I get it and how do I get it? What is available in the market? All right? So be wise about this. So change, like somebody mentioned Jack Welch, is it Ukwila? Change before you have to, Jack Welch has said. And Malcolm Gladwell, in his book called The Outliers, you need 10,000 hours of practice to really be an expert. How many of you want to be expert in HR? There's no shortcut. You need 10,000 hours of practice based on statistical research. Because a study was done on German violinists in the 1990s. They say that at the age of 5, they started practicing the violin. Almost many hours a day. But at the age of 8, some practice more, some practice less. And at the age of 21 or 17, those who practiced consistently became the violin virtuoso. The rest just play as a hobby. You understand? So there is a difference, Tiger Woods, how did he become a great golfer? He kept on playing golf for more than 10,000 hours. It's not by magic. Remember, in the research, natural talent doesn't appear in expertise. It is constant practice and exposure that makes it. That's hard work. Bill Gates and Paul Allen, the founders of Microsoft, do you know that their history was like this? When they were in a private school called Lakeside School, primary school, the school invested in a computer for 3,000 USD. And every night, before the bedtime, they sneak out of the bedroom and go to the school and did programming work. Because they were just loving it and very passionate about it. And then when they studied in the University of Washington in Seattle, they keep on going back to the computer labs. By 1973 or 1975, they were ready to found Microsoft. You understand what I mean? The same applied to the Beatles. 7 hours every day, 7 days a week, for 5 years, until they become the best hit sellers. So, HR, change, practice, 10,000 hours. That seems to be the standard. It's not a magic figure, it is a sheer hard work and determination figure. So, this is an example of 360, that what are the competencies you want to have. You just take a quick look at it. Time does not permit me to say more than that, but there are many ways of what you call, I like Richard's word, bespoke 360, which means customized 360. All these can be customized according to your organizational needs. Moving forward, competency is one thing. How do you measure performance? This is where you become a business partner to the CEO. This is the little secret that I like to share. It's called Balanced Scorecard KPIs. How many of you have heard of KPIs? Put up your hands. Not so many, yeah? Okay, I better explain. KPIs means key performance indicators. That means you measure performance that indicate whether you do good, poorly, or excellent. What do you think? This is called the V-shaped formation. Do you notice, you're talking about team building, learn from the Canadian wild geese. There are 3 or 5 lessons that I can remember now. Number 1. Oops, sorry. This is the leader, right? That is the hardest job. To be a country manager of Coca-Cola is not easy. They are paid high salary and they have wear and tear. So any CEOs or MD faces this issue, business issue. But once they flap the wings, he's the highest energy person in the company. It will create a downdrift to make it easier for the next bird to fly. Less resistance. It is flapping the wings. And it gets easier. And this fella has the easiest life. Because everybody is flapping for him. Okay? Is that teamwork? Well, some benefit, some suffer, right? But not the case. Learn from the wild geese. This fella, after a while, gets very tired, will go to the back. That's called retirement for CEOs. All CEOs got shelf life, which means they get worn out. New technology, new management style, they need to rest. Just now you talk about Gen Y. My country is facing problems of baby boomers, like Mr. Gary's age and my age. We are called baby boomers. We were born after the war. Please don't ask our age. Then there's Gen X. My associate consultant is Gen X. I want almost to tell the age, but I quickly stop myself. But Gen X are in the mid-40s, early 40s to the late 40s. Then there's Gen Y. They were born in 1980 and beyond. Gen X, they were born in 1967 and beyond. Just to give you a quick measurements. So in a company now in Malaysia, we have baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y. Big problem. It's like a big family with different ages under one roof. Can you imagine that? Okay. So leadership here is very important. It seems that if they fly this way, they can go 70% further in their distance. That's why everybody keeps to it. We all got to work like a team. Maybe baby boomer, then retire here, Gen X, Gen Y. You understand? This is the way we should have teamwork. The V-shaped formation. And if anyone were to fall down, 2 birds will come down and look after that. That means caring for one another until the bird recovers or the bird dies. So that's a way of teamwork in real life. You can learn from the birds. So think of teamwork in this way. And having said that, you need a balanced scorecard to measure targets in order to know how effective is your teamwork. As a business partner to the CEO, a few HR specialists are now coming up to become business partners to CEO, at least in Malaysia and Singapore. And this is what I want to share. Robert Kaplan and David Norton were the founders of this balanced scorecard, KPIs. Basically, everybody talk about business vision and strategy, am I right? They talk about business plan, but nobody has a clue or idea how to translate it into execution or operationalize it. So what happens is, they say the business is divided into 4 components. Financials, obviously you need money, cash flow, profit and loss, revenue. Am I right? Return on shareholders' funds. You need internal business process. How well is your production going on? Whether in services or in goods. And learning and growth. Most companies ignore this. They call it the training budget. Let's clear the training budget because you're coming to the end of the year. Do you face that? You're under pressure to clear it. Train anything, go for medieval pottery also is fine. You know? And customer. Who is your market? These are the four main components of what makes a business successful. So there are four perspectives in the balanced scorecard: financial, customer, business process, and learning and growth. It is easier said than done. These are the four areas. How do you measure performance? Each company has got its own unique factors, and we got to measure them. I move on because I don't want to. It's a very complex subject, but I'm trying to simplify it. But this is the way most companies are going through now in Malaysia and Singapore, and Thailand too. Oops. So let me give you agriculture analogy. If you invest in people, it is like investing in the roots. Am I right? With that, the business process is like the trunks and the branches. The customer satisfaction is where everything becomes green. And the financial results is when you eat the fruits. So it takes a process. And the earlier you invest in it, the better. So you need to have KPIs that are smart, specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time-based. Because, let me tell you some KPIs that people have set in business, and HR is helping the CEO. Oh, if I attend 3 meetings in a month, that's my KPI. But meetings are activities. But if you say, I want to increase sales from 10 million to 12 million in 1 year, that is a good KPI. It can be measured. Is that right? So think of how you set your KPIs. Most people, the weakest point is people do not know how to set KPIs. Why am I into Uber taxi? Okay. Uber taxi is one example of balanced scorecard KPIs. Have you all heard of Uber taxi? Is there any in Phnom Penh? Okay. Uber taxi is in Malaysia now. London, Paris, New Delhi, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines. I don't know about your country, but in my country, taxis must be licensed. Are taxis licensed here? Okay. What happens is, in Malaysia, Uber says, you don't need to be licensed. You are free of the business process of licensing. You just need to own a car. I give you a GPS, the Uber apps. And with that, you can find the roads. In London, to be a taxi driver, they are called the black cabs. They take a long time, probably, is it 2 or 3 years, to really learn. They call it the knowledge. They must know every street in London, But these Uber guys follow a GPS, they can find their way already. Whereas the poor London taxi drivers had to memorize all in their head, and they sometimes forget and go to the wrong streets. So with the apps, the business process is in place. And they earn more money than the normal taxi drivers. Apparently, in India, the traditional taxi driver earns about 225 USD per month. An Uber taxi driver earns 900 USD per month. You see the big difference? Because while the taxi drivers are waiting, the customer press the handphone, the taxi driver comes straight away, picks the passengers and goes off, and this poor traditional taxi driver is left waiting. So they are losing customer and market share. And they are earning more money. And they are getting very angry. So in our country, 100,000 people are going to be taxi drivers under Uber this year. You know why? Because there are 7 million in the Klang Valley, 7 million customers. So the issue of business model is a very important issue. Are you clear about that? What is your business model? And HR got to start asking my competencies and my business model using balanced scorecard and KPIs. Oh, sorry. With that, I don't want to go into the technical side. I want to end that there is a way of combining competencies, BSc KPIs, make it to 100% score, and work towards performance-based and incentives without penalty. How you do that is another story. But it's combining and overcoming problems in the workplace. Unless commitment is made, there are only promises and hopes, but no plans. That's what Peter Drucker said. So don't talk, do, and do it right. Thank you very much. Okun.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cheong Seng, for your wonderful and well-elaborated presentation.